Well, looks like the Supreme Court just gave Steve Bannon a gift and that they paved the way for his conviction to bloop, be erased like it never even happened. How is this even possible? Hi, I'm Melba Pearson, also known as the Resident Legal Diva, and I'm here with Kelly Hyman, and we are going to break this down. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe to Legal AF for all things at the intersection of law and politics, and be sure to follow us both on socials because we too do deeper dives into a lot of the issues being covered here. So, breaking news. Steve Bannon has been told by basically the Supreme Court that his conviction is going to be dismissed. Now, this is all out of the January 6th riot, debacle, insurrection, all the things. And he was subpoenaed to come in front of a congressional committee to testify in terms of what happened that day, his role, et cetera, et cetera. Just about everybody else complied with the subpoena. But Steve Bannon thought he was special and decided he wasn't going to comply. Well, he gets prosecuted, he gets convicted, 2022, ends up serving 4 months in jail as a result of this conviction. And now the Supreme Court's like, yeah, even though your conviction was basically upheld on appeal, we're going to tell the appellate court to ignore that, and we're basically sending this case back for it to be dismissed. This is some wonkiness. Kelly, give me your thoughts, because this is just pure craziness.
It's important to remember that what happened in the court proceedings, that in fact there was a jury that heard all the facts and evidence, and based on the facts and evidence presented, they found him guilty of those charges. He appealed, but ultimately spent, as you pointed out, 4 months in jail. And now this is, as you pointed out, going to be dismissed. And it makes you think of why would they want to do that? Because let's think about this. So he, in fact, ignored the subpoena, and the grounds was on the advice of my counsel. He was convicted, but then he appealed that, and they were like, no go. And so now why all of a sudden, Melba, do you think that after he did his time and is a convicted felon, that all of a sudden they're saying, okay, well, we want this dismissed? Why do you think they're doing this now? And what's the reasoning behind it, since he already did his time?
And that's the thing that befuddles me, Kelly. So the quote that was given by D. John Sauer, who is the Solicitor General handling this case, he had asked the Supreme Court to send it back to the lower court to be dismissed, and he says that it's in its prosecutorial discretion that dismissal of this case, criminal case, is in the interests of justice. In the interests of justice. Now, listen, I'm a big fan of prosecutorial discretion because I think if used correctly, you can right past wrongs, you can prevent wrongs from happening. So absolutely get that. But here, why are you doing this? Like, is there a particular civil right that they're trying to restore to him? Is it that he's not able to vote or something? And of course, we know this administration rewards loyalty for the most part, if you're male, for the most part. So what is he rewarding Steve Bannon for? Did he give some information to this administration? Did he create a perfect storm in terms of being able to push Pam Bondi out or Kristi Noem or something? Like, it feels like he did more than just, yes, I voted for him, it's great. Like, there's something else driving this. And as you said, Kelly, this was a legit conviction. We went through a whole trial. The jury heard all the evidence. A jury of his peers came back and said he was guilty. So why are you making the highest court in the land dismiss the charges against him from the Law and Order Administration, right? Like, not so much.
Interest of justice. I think that's an interesting point. what justice wasn't served, right? We have to think back, as you pointed out, he was served a subpoena, and that is compelling you, a subpoena compelling you to do something, where they asked him to speak and come forward and subpoena him a document. He decided to not do that. Congress said you're not in compliant. It was investigated. A grand jury charged him with the charges. He was ultimately convicted at trial, appealed that as well, did the time, and then he's out. So when you think about it, the interest of justice for whom? Is it the interest of justice for Steve Bannon? Is it the interest of justice for the American people? I mean, what exactly is this interest of justice? And to your point, like, is it because, okay, now we're going to have it dismissed like it never happened, and potentially that can help him restore his rights to vote, because every state is kind of different on how they characterize people's restoration of voting rights? And so, or is it because that there's something else behind it? And so it makes you think, it makes you wonder, what exactly is the purpose of this, and why are they doing it now?
And the thing that gets me is just, what message is that sending? Like, okay, I'm going to subpoena you to come to court. It's one of the most powerful tools that any congressional committee, anyone who's trying to do oversight, or even just day to day in terms of prosecuting your run of the mill robbery, burglary, homicide, whatever, you got to subpoena witnesses to come in. That's the only power by which a court or a prosecutor can have somebody come in to testify in a case. Even defense attorneys use subpoenas to be able to bring in defense witnesses to be able to shed light on a particular issue. So if you're saying that this legal document no longer has any force, right? Because he ignored the subpoena, he got convicted, he went to prison, but yet this administration is going to erase it like it never even happened. That's saying, okay, fine, ignore your subpoenas because you might luck out and also get your case eventually dismissed, which, first of all, I highly do not recommend. 10 out of 10, not a good idea, because unless you're hooked up like Steve Bannon, your outcome is not going to be the same. So I highly recommend everybody still, if you get subpoenaed, you comply with the subpoena. But overall, as a policy, what is this saying to the American people? What is this saying to the American criminal justice system?
You think about, like, no one's above the law. I mean, we point out about the subpoena. I mean, we look at former President Clinton, former Secretary of State Miss Clinton, who were also subpoenaed, right? And they were fighting that. And it was the idea of, if you don't do this, potentially you could be held in contempt and potentially be charged with a crime for not complying with the subpoena. And they, in fact, testified. And so Bannon, from his appeal, was saying, oh, I was doing it on advice of counsel and immunity. But that went up through the courts. And based on the courts, they basically said, yeah, no. Advice of counsel, yeah, no. So why now? I think to your point, there's something that we don't know, and potentially it's the idea of voting or something else to have this case dismissed. But there's something that we don't know.
Yeah, definitely. Well, folks, sound off in the comments. What do you think is behind this sudden change of heart and, oh, let's erase this conviction like it never even happened? Because we're a little bit at a loss. So all we can do, unfortunately, is speculate until something more concrete comes to the fore. And of course, we will be watching for it. So, Kelly Hyman, Melba Pearson, also known as the Resident Legal Diva, Thank you so much for tuning in. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and share with a friend. Stay safe, stay informed, and keep demanding justice. Take care.
In collaboration with the Midas Touch Network, we just launched the Legal AF YouTube channel. Help us build this pro-democracy channel where I'll be curating the top stories, the intersection of law and politics. Go to YouTube now and free subscribe at Legal AF MTN. That's at Legal AF MTN.